you're riding along and you just find the breath gets sucked right out of your mouth. You're there kind of going, and you just pull over, try and sit down, try and take it in, and you're trying to do it in such a way that you're not just driving like, oh, that's great, next place, that's great, no, and next place, that's great, and then just keep driving, because in between all the really, really great places, there's some really, really average places, and then there's some absolute dumps. So what you really need to do is, when you're in a good place, is try and really soak it up, because the thought of it, and then the thought of getting to the next great place, is what's going to tide you over the doldrums. And I think in any trip, there's doldrums. I suppose I hadn't left Intel that long, and I was still very much in a kind of a regimented regime, you know, where everything you're doing is goal orientated and it's destination orientated. I have to get here by this date and this time, and push. And before you know it, then you've 10,000 miles clocked up on the bike, and you're kind of going, well, what exactly was the highlight of that? It's important to just slow down and soak it up. Try and not keep moving, because it's not going to be too long before you're back in work, before you're back to the normal routine. So if you do get the opportunity to do something like this, you know, take your time, soak it up, breathe it in, and try and imprint it in your head. And that's one of the reasons I'm videoing this, is so that I can, you know, in a couple of years' time, just go and look at these videos and kind of relive some of the experiences I'm having. I've never seen such a large concentration of signs for one small town. They're trying to do, as I suppose, is entice people to go up that dirt road to the town of Moose Road. If you were to look at all those signs, you think there's nothing that that town doesn't have. A lot of the towns in these areas are just service towns. They're purely a place where you can go to sleep, get something to eat, get some gas, that's it. So people tend to arrive there pretty late and leave very early. They're kind of a transit town. They're all over the place, like Watson Lake is a good example. In the winter, most of these places become almost uninhabitable, and most of the industry comes from lumber because there's just trees everywhere. So the whole world is up and moving early. It's 6:30 AM and almost the entire motel is cleaned out. Also, you can see the roads are mad busy, and there's a really good reason for that. Everywhere is really far away up here. I mean, the distances here go crazy. You don't actually, when you talk to people here, they stop talking to you in terms of, oh, it's 200 miles, 800 miles, 1,000 kilometers, 2,000. They say it's a 3-day ride, it's a 4-day ride, it's a 5-day ride. And it's much more appropriate because the place is too vast. Every single place. I mean, you start to look at the distances between the towns and it's all 350 miles, 250 miles, 400 miles. A bear is going to hop out of here now any second. That'll be my worst fear, is that I can see myself here in the viewfinder, obviously. You know, as I'm talking to you, next thing a fucking bear comes out in the two hind paws. And then somebody actually films the thing taking my head off. And then they find the film and they post it on YouTube and it says, dumb Irish man gets his head hacked off by bear. He got what he deserved. He wasn't looking behind him. You see, when you hear something coming out of the forest, you get a bit of a fright. Because, like, I mean, these forests are full of wildlife, you know. There's... Ooh. See those red berries? That's what the bear eats. I wouldn't try eating them myself. I'm sure they're probably alright for you, wild red berries. But a bear will do a whole bush in about 30 to 40 seconds. It's a fresh morning. Beard. Need to trim it. Like, oh, are you growing that to look like Ewan McGregor, are you? Somebody sent me a note on it and I said, well, actually, no. The helmet comes to here. Then I normally wear a buff to there. And the beard is a great man for stopping freezing cold air, freezing the neck off you. It kind of at least keeps your head warm. Do you believe it? Oh, yeah, right. This could be anywhere in Alberta, British Columbia, the Yukon or Alaska. It all looks like this. The only difference is the amount of mountains that are in the area. Most of northwestern America is like this, actually. Not most of it, but I mean there's vast sections of it like this. And you can see the attraction if you're living in a city, you know, working 9 to 5, year in, year out, and then all of a sudden you get the opportunity to come to a place like this. Lo and hold, that's what you get when you're watching an amateur load of shite. Lo and hold, lo and behold, lo and behold, lo and behold, lo and behold. Here I am. Here I find myself by the lake, in the thing with the trees. It's fantastic. Not long ago, when was it? 2 days ago in the evening, saw this incredible stag deer, you know, the full set of antlers. Again, eating in the roadside pasture here. And, you know, there's traffic stopping left, right and centre to see it, you know, to get a picture of it. And it's an incredible dynamic that there's so many people desperate to see wildlife. And I mean, they'll almost causing an accident on the road by pulling over to see it. And then there's another school of people up here who just want to shoot it, because up in Alaska, I was pulled over by the side of the road again, and this guy driving a 4x4 wearing the full hunter gear, he says, "Hey, have you seen any caribou?" And I went, "Well, fuck." I says, "I haven't." But in my head I turned around and says, "And if I did, I wouldn't tell you, because what are you going to do? Shoot them?" And they have signs there which say, they have signs along the way which say, "No roadside shooting." Which, if you think about it, right, roadside shooting has got to be the lowest form of hunting. So you drive along in your car and you see an animal by the side of the road and you shoot it. I mean, I would say even credible hunters wouldn't tolerate that stuff. Because on these lay-bys there's good eating. And I'm pointing at this, and that's exactly what it was. Like, a buffalo sees this, buffalo will eat that all day. The whole herd of them will just walk down the side of the road, because why would they go in there when they can do it here? You know, and the buffalo doesn't give a shite that there's anything on the road. Like, it's completely oblivious to cars and trucks. I think it's too focused on eating and riding and running and just digging up stuff. It's an amazing thing to get up every morning and have somewhere to go. Like, I have a heading today. You know, I have a rough plan what I'm going to do. I've no idea where I'm going to stay, or how long I'm going to stay out on the road, or where I'm going to be tomorrow. I just have a kind of a rough heading, and that is a fantastic feeling. You know, when you come from, if you've worked for any large corporate company, you know, it's a very regimental. I mean, it's the same stuff over and over again. And one of the great things about getting out on the road by yourself is that you decide where you're going, what direction, where you're going to stay, how long you're going to stay for. And there's a fantastic feeling when you just say to yourself, where am I going today? And I'm not really sure. I'm just going to roughly, broadly head either east, south, west or north. And that's fantastic. Now, it takes about a month before you're able to do it, because in your mind you're constantly thinking, where am I going, what time do I need to get there, where will I stay, all that sort of stuff. But after about a month on the road, you really start to dial out, and in your head you start to say, I don't care where I actually end up today, and I'm not on a schedule, and I don't really mind. Well, there it is. That's the end of the Alcan, which is a bit of a misnomer because this is actually the start, but you know what I mean. If you, this is mile 0. I think Anchorage is the final mile of it. It's a very famous, you can feel the wind. Jesus, the wind has just been insane today. It's an extremely famous highway for a couple of reasons. One is because it was built in 8 months. During World War II, there was a fear that there would be an invasion, so they built the entire thing in 8 months, and that is some feat, because I think it's well over 2,500 kilometres long. If you think about how long it took them to build the M50 in Dublin, and if you think about the remoteness of where it was shooting that motorway into Alaska, that is a startling achievement. Oh, Jesus, I'm bollocks. So, I'm just going to nip down here. I'm not going to stay on the bike much longer today. And the good news is British Columbia is nearly done, and Alberta is only about, 20 minutes down the road. And then once I get the first town I hit, I'm going to go to sleep in. How are you? That over there is Alberta, my final Canadian state. Here's something to consider. If that's Alberta there, right, and that's British Columbia there, that dude, where's he live? That house is right in the middle of the two of them. I guarantee it's some form of tax. He's not paying any tax or something to either state. You might say, well, what's the big deal? Why are you making such a big deal of crossing from British Columbia to Alberta? British Columbia is massive. British Columbia extends the whole way from Vancouver to Dawson Creek. Alright. Yeah, to here. But I mean, it's thousands and thousands of kilometres. It's not like, this is like the equivalent of driving from Ireland to Moscow or something. That sort of distance. So it's a huge deal. You know, this is not like travelling from Rhode Island to New Hampshire or something. Most dudes, when they're on their own, might go to bed with a bit of porn or something like that. I'm going with them Alberta to bed. It's amazing how much comfort you get out of poring over maps. I know it sounds silly, but I love looking at a map and looking at where you're going and what road you're going to take and what's along the route and where you might stop. where you might stay, all that sort of stuff. I just love looking at it. Whereas there's a tremendous amount of satisfaction comes from following a map and, you know, folding over, yet and down here and then mark, yet and up there, oh there it is, there's that mountain. So, and you get a tremendous kind of, especially when the roads are pretty boring, you get a tremendous kind of reinforcement, or kind of positive reinforcement that you're making progress, because you can see yourself moving on the map. Whereas the GPS, a stupid looking purple line, and on these roads it might say something like left turn in 200 miles, and that's just going to drive you insane. So I really recommend don't bother with the GPS and stick to maps. Tim Hortons, when you're crossing Canada, you just run into these all over the place. I think there's something like 3,000 stores. But the one thing they do in the morning, which is fantastic, is oatmeal. And even though the sun is shining, it's really, really cold. And when you're on the bike, I think it's about 48 degrees at the moment, but you'll be freezing on the bike. So getting something hot, a huge big cup of coffee and a porridge into you, is a fantastic way to keep you warm for at least 2 hours till you stop again. But that's the good thing about it. On the downside of it is that with Tim Hortons opening up pretty much in every town over 3,000 or 4,000 people, all the mom and pop diners have shut. So the places where you would typically have gone in and had a seat, and maybe the owner of the place and the locals come over and start talking to you, it's a real kind of a friendly place where all the locals go, those are gone. The downside of doing a motorcycle trip is maybe you allot yourself 5 months to do the whole trip, and maybe it's the Pan American Highway, or maybe it's around the world. But most people are on a time constraint, and you're trying to constantly balance, well, how long do I stay in places like this versus other places? Do I keep to the schedule roughly? Do I allow myself 2 days? And what happens when you start to slip behind schedule? What if you're a month behind schedule? What do you do then? So I suppose in my head the way I think of it is say you had 3 months off and you wanted to come here and live in the Rockies, you'd be kind of getting the mile deep experience. You know, it'd be an inch wide and a mile deep. It'd be just this beautiful mountains, rivers, lakes and nature. Whereas a motorcycle trip, it's a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep. So you only get to take samples of everything along the way. But I think the beauty of that is then you can come and decide then on your holidays next time round, well, of all the places I went to, these were the 3 places I loved the best, and now I'm going to go back there and spend time there and do the mile deep experience. But I would love to just jump in a kayak, row out to the middle of that and stay there until sunset.